Hey there, nerdpreneurs. Welcome back to Market Like a Nerd. And get ready to geek out with me because today I'm joined by Nafissa Shireen. Whoop, whoop. Hey, Nafissa. Welcome to Nerdpreneur Nation.
Hey, Amanda. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, we're so stoked to have you. Now, for everyone who is listening, today we're going to be talking about founder of Living Forward, Nafissa Shireen here, how she went from her $1,400 first year flop to making multiple six figures with speaking. Quite the turnaround story. I like it. So before we get into her tips and her steps for how she did that, let me tell you a little bit more about Nafissa. Nafissa Shireen is the founder of Living Forward Business and Lifestyles Incorporated. She believes that by choosing to keep in forward motion, no matter what challenges may come up, we each have the power to create the exact life we want for ourselves. An award-winning master coach and an experienced multiple seven-figure businesswoman, Nafissa has taken many companies from concept to cash flow, serving entrepreneurs and Fortune 500 companies alike. She built her multi-six-figure business originally on speaking, both online and in person, and still uses these same strategies today to keep her speaking calendar and client pipeline full. What sets her apart is her ability to blend the purposeful with the practical, helping entrepreneurs build a business that is deeply meaningful and that provides them with the time, money, and freedom to create their life by design. Now, that's the overview of her story and biography, but I want you guys to get to know the real Nafissa. So before we get into the meat of today's episode, let's have some fun. You ready, girl?
Absolutely. I should have had my puppy sitting right here. And you can see what it really goes on behind the scenes.
So, all right, let's do it. Speak live
Perfect.
or speak virtually?
Live or virtually?
Mm-hmm.
I think both.
Okay. Vancouver or the Arizona desert?
It depends what time of year it is. In the winter, it's the Arizona desert. In the summer, it's Vancouver.
Oh, yeah. I feel you.
Yeah.
If you were stuck in the desert and you could wish anyone there, who would you want to have there with you?
Oh my goodness. Who would I want to have with me? You know what? Probably Jamie Fraser from Outlander.
I've
I'd
never
want-
actually seen that.
Oh yeah, I would want it anywhere I was stuck.
Nice. If you could trade places with your pug for a day or your horse for a day, which
Okay.
one would you choose?
Oh, probably my horse.
Yeah, that sounds like more
Yeah.
fun. And then,
Yeah.
the dogs like lick other dogs' butts and stuff. So,
Yeah, my horse gets body work massages. He has a whole staff, so I would take it. His life.
nice. Sounds like the life.
Yeah.
You talk about living forward, but if you could only age backwards, what age would you want to be?
What age would I want to be? 40. That was the best year of my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. I'm only 26, so I don't know yet. But when I was younger, my mom convinced me that anything over 30 is just like the devil. She told
Well,
because I actually
I
have
had
no-
a complete
Go ahead.
breakdown in my 30s, right? Like it wasn't great. But then when I hit 40, I mean, that was the year. I mean, I lost a ton of weight. I won bodybuilding competitions. My revenue went up to seven figures. It was just, it was a good year.
Yeah.
And I found myself. And then I left the corporate world shortly after. So 40 was transformational. So I would say I'd go back to 40 because it was awesome.
Nice. You actually look younger than 40, so I was surprised at that answer.
Well, I'm pushing 47.
Well, you look good, girl.
Thank you.
All right, finally, and most importantly, imagine the world is taken over by millions of duck-sized horses. You can't tame them. There aren't enough barns to hold these duck-sized horses, Nafissa. What do you do to save humanity?
To save humanity? Oh man, I just go buy a bunch of molasses and oats so they can just keep feeding them. You can keep them under control. And some brooms.
You saved us. You saved us. Thank you. All right. Now let's save some businesses. So,
Okay.
Nafissa, you told me that you were going to share with us today your story about how you went from a first year $1,400 flop to making multiple six figures from speaking and the tips and steps that you have to help other people do the same. So can you get a little OCD with us and break it down into like 3 to 5 main steps or tips that you have for us today?
And I want to just clarify that $1,400 flop. That would have been the good story, because that was the money in, right? There was still expenses out. So I tell people I hit 6 figures in my first year. It was just in reverse. So it wasn't good. So, I mean, speaking did transform my business. And so many people, would say, you got to get out and speak. You got to get out and speak. Now, understanding I had come from a corporate background, I was used to making a lot of money, and I kind of thought I had it all going on. But what I didn't know how to do was how to be an entrepreneur, and I didn't know how to sell, and I didn't know how to get clients, and I didn't know anybody because I'd worked out of the country for 5 years. Oh. So now I'm coming back with all of that, kind of going, I'll just put a sign up and they will come. So, and I'm all, I got online, I did all kinds of things, and it just, money was just going out the door. I didn't have a plan, right? I didn't have a plan. And I couldn't attract clients if my life depended on it. I didn't know like an ideal client. I didn't know what that meant. And I thought, right at this point, anybody with a pulse and a checkbook would do really good, right? Because you go through all that. So it was a really, really tough first year. And then my mentor at the time said, well, you just need to get out there and you need to get speaking. Mm-hmm. And I honestly didn't need a lot of convincing for that, because I was hitting the networking circuit every single week. And that's really painful. I mean, I don't really network now. I only hit those things if I'm actually the speaker. But I was going out 1, 2, 3 times a week. I live way out in the country. These were all downtown Vancouver. And so, you'd be driving. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I'd much rather be the speaker and then go out maybe once a month, get some clients, and go home.
Oh, what just occurred to me? It's probably so painful having a business that's actually losing money in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Vancouver's freaking expensive.
Yes, it is. And so I had savings for my corporate job, but I kind of didn't want to run out, right?
Yeah.
And they were dwindling. And so I thought, okay, yeah, great. I will start speaking. And so that worked about as well as trying to get clients at first.
Right, of course.
And what I found is everybody's telling you, get speaking, get speaking, get speaking, but nobody's telling you how to get speaking gigs. And so I just tried what I knew how to do, because I can be pretty tenacious. So I would just approach event hosts. I'm like, hey, can I speak for you? And it was the same thing. I didn't have an ideal venue. I didn't have an ideal client. I wasn't clear. I didn't know how to approach them. And the polite ones said, sorry, we're booked till next year. Everyone else kind of ignored me.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, it was like this defining moment. I went to a mompreneur club. It was at a daycare. And these were business owners who were not really serious about business. It was a hobby, but I thought, I'll just try speaking here. A year before, I was like flying on private jets, speaking to big boards and law firms and governments. And here I could, the mompreneurs told me no, too.
Oh,
so
no.
It was really bad.
By the way, thank you so much for sharing this, because I feel like in this industry, we're very much about sharing the successes, and we don't always share the behind the scenes failures. Like, even in my business, a lot of people think that they hear about how I made a lot of money very, very quickly in my business and very, very young. That's like my thing. Like, oh, you made so much at such a young age. But my first business was very much like yours. Like, I did not make a whole lot of money that first year. And that's the stuff that people need to hear.
I mean, it can be done, but if it's not happening, like a person shouldn't beat themselves up, because there's so much evolution you have to go through. And especially if any of your listeners have done what I did, where they've had like a first act, like a corporate gig, or they had a different successful business, you have to take on a whole new identity that has nothing to do with your actual business skills, and it's learning new things. And so a whole lot of stuff comes up, and it can be pretty scary. I wasn't afraid to go stand in front of a board of directors and ask for $40 million. No problem. Go negotiate with underground miners. No problem. Ask somebody to pay me for my services.
Whole nother story.
Yeah, like the fear, right? And so it just kind of all perpetuated. And so this whole idea of speaking seemed really appealing to me. And I don't know how I did it. I finally did get a speaking gig. I think I begged, and it was someone who knew me, and I begged and begged and begged. That's not
tip number 1: beg.
If you have to, you have to, but it's not going to get you really like a full calendar of speaking gigs.
Right.
Now, this took me about a year of from the time I decided I would speak, it was a year until I actually was told, okay, let's get you on stage. But then, of course, there's a time lag. So there was 6 months I still had to wait. So this is 18 months from deciding to speak. Year before that, I wasn't doing very well. So, I mean, it was getting to the point where I'm kind of like, this isn't working.
Right.
I had the talk and I was convinced. I got up on stage. It was a great talk, great audience. Everything went really well. My little list at that point was maybe 50 people. So when I added 50 more people in one talk, at that point, I was like, wow, right?
Yeah.
And I had 30 discovery sessions from it. And and that one talk, like I use that as a case study in my own business on why to speak. Within a few months, like a couple of months, I had $16,000 in revenue from that. So that was huge, right? I'm like from
how
nothing
many people,
to
do you remember how many people were in that room?
Okay, this is a long time ago.
Testing that memory.
Yeah, 40 or 50 maybe. It was
That's
a good
really high conversion.
Yeah, like it was a good sized crowd but not huge. So
Yeah.
But yeah, came on so it was great. I mean, that convinced me. But there was only one problem. I didn't have any more gigs.
Yeah.
left, right? And I do want to just talk back to that one talk for a moment though, because I think it is a really good case study because a lot of times people are taught, you walk in and you close a room and you walk out. Mm. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes there is an immediate business in the room. And even that 16,000, it took a couple of months for it all to come through. Mm. But when I look back now through people that were a client that referred me to someone else or someone in the audience that heard me and said, you need to talk to somebody, I can attribute $41,000 of income to that one talk. Mm. I mean, it's been a few years, right?
Yeah.
And maybe people are thinking, well, I don't want to wait a few years. And I'm going, no, think about this. This is a long-term strategy for your business. You're just seeding it, and it just keeps coming back.
Well, I love that you said that because I'm a big believer of long-term sustainability over short-term income. Yes, you want to make money now so that you can pay yourself, but you want to think about the long game. And I think that's where a lot of business owners go wrong is they're so obsessed with, oh my God, I got to make money now. I got to make money now, that they don't put the things in place to set them up for long-term success. And it sounds like speaking is a great way where, it not only are you going to make money now, but it's also going to see these future sales, and you're going to see opportunities that come in the door, years after those events.
Exactly. And like one of my clients came to me through my mailing list, but she was recommended to come on my mailing list from someone who's at that talk, right? So it just it adds up, right? I mean, now my business is a little different. I mean, it's kind of 50-50. I have a lot more online, but this gave me my foundation. And some of those people that came on my list from speaking in the early days, they're still there, right? Yeah. And they share my stuff. And so it's just a good way to get known and get in front of people. Now, I had that talk, though. I didn't have any more afterwards. And I was kind of like, well, 16,000 is great, going back to that, but that's not enough, right?
But you got expenses and you got to pay yourself. Yeah.
And I've got to do this more than once every 18 months, right? So I really tried really hard to figure out how to get speaking gigs. And I looked everywhere because I'm somebody that's kind of like, look, if someone's got a formula, I'll pay for it because but it didn't exist. So I kind of had to figure it out on my own through a little bit of trial and error. And what I found out was when I can't help it. I am a bit of a systems geek because systems are predictable. They're repeatable. If it works once, you can repeat it and do it again. Yeah. If there's a piece that's not working, you can pull it out.
Oh my God, you can so see that in your videos. You just have like the most pristine videos, and you have such you have a very identifiable style to them. I can tell there's a system to how you do them. I love it.
Everything is a system, right? Because you can just repeat it. And so I created a system for getting booked. And at the time, I didn't realize it was a system, which is kind of cool. But when I put all these steps in place, I reached out, and it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, I had a completely full calendar. And I've never looked back, right? Because now I'm in the place where I can say, you know what, I don't want to speak for the next 3 months, and I don't have to, or I want to speak now and I can kind of control when I have my income come in from that aspect. And also online speaking too, not just in person, but getting out there and having online speaking too, because I think my very first online appearance got me a $7,000 client. So that was 2 days later. So you just can't deny what happens when people can engage with you online and in person. That's why you ask online or in person. I'm like, both.
So you went 18 months to get this gig, and then you figured out this system and you were booked solid in like 2 weeks.
Pretty much.
That's freaking crazy. Please tell me you're going to tell me what it is.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I didn't realize so many people are asking me afterwards, well, how did you do that? How did you do that? And so it was actually, I mean, it was 2 weeks of work, right? And so I say there's 6 steps to it. Okay. The fifth and sixth step kind of came later and I'll tell you about that in a second, but the first 4 were what I figured the foundational steps. And I think so many people do this where they just go, I want to get speaking, and they just start applying. Like I've seen, some, opt-ins and stuff where people put a list out saying, here's 100 places to speak. If you start there and you don't do all your homework up front, you're going to have what I had for that year. You haven't prepared yourself to have them want you on your stage. So the first thing is, I say your first step is preparation, right? I mean, you got to get your mindset into it. You got to appreciate what, that you do have a gift. You have to really be confident, and then you've got to plan out, and you've got to make decisions on how you want your speaking to go. It's just like a launch. I mean, I put the same effort into a speaking tour as I do to an online launch. And if you think about it, that you're launching yourself. So there's decisions you have to make, like how many times a month do you want to be speaking? What is an ideal venue for you? Like, do you want to travel? And I don't recommend people start traveling right away to speak until they know their conversion rates, because it can get expensive. Because most places you're not paid, right, to speak. Because we're not talking about being a paid speaker. We're talking about speaking as marketing. Right. So unless you know your conversion rates, don't. But these are decisions you need to make. And if people are just starting out with speaking, you kind of need about 2 or 3 days in that week if you're going to have a talk, for getting ready, doing the talk, and then follow up. And when you have a team at a certain point, then they can take care of a lot of those logistics. But if you don't, you need it. So you have to make those decisions in advance, because it decides, how you're going to, like how many times you're going to speak, how you're going to reach out, and just be really, really clear on all of that, so that you go into this with a purpose and strategy instead of just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And
then it gives you something to work towards. So, if you have specific, very tangible goals for your gigs, not just, I want to like speak more on stage. Like I want to speak once a month, or I want to speak
locally, or at women's clubs or mom clubs or whatever it is, right?
Exactly.
And this does take some time. And then the next step is also a little bit more time consuming. And I always use this expression when people are asking me about it. You all know I love my horse. Love natural horsemanship. My hero in natural horsemanship is Pat Pirelli, and he always says, talking about horses, take the time it takes so it takes less time. And I love that, because I spent 1.5 years not taking any time to do this, and I didn't get speaking. When I took 2 weeks to put a bit of work into it, I was booked solid and changed my business. So you take the time it takes to do the prep work, like it makes a huge...
this is reminding me of when I it's not live speaking, but when I went through a period where I really wanted to get podcast interviews. I ended up getting 50 podcast interviews in 60 days, and people were like, oh, how'd you do that? But it's exactly the way that you're describing it. I did the planning to make myself desirable to the podcast, got my media page and my one sheets and all of that stuff up. And then I spent, I think it was 1 week of focused efforts to actually go and get myself booked and do all the research, write all the pitches, and go and reach out like crazy. I think I had a list of hundreds of people to reach out to.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, proper planning makes execution automatic.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how I love it. So then you keyed on the next step, the most important one. You said making yourself desirable. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs overlook that step. You need to make yourself irresistible to event hosts. There are enough gigs out there, and there's also a lot of people applying for them online and in person. And how do you stand out? I will tell you what not to do. Like when I sent a Facebook message to somebody I kind of knew and said, hey, I'd like to talk about a money topic. I mean, I just, I think it's so bad.
In retrospect, not a good idea.
Right? So I had to figure out a few things. Like, okay, well, first of all, you need to brand yourself as a speaker. Now, we're not talking about going away from your core brand, but if someone's going to put you on their stage, they need to know that you can fill the room and hold it. Right. And I was talking to an event host one time, and she said that, there's so many members in our group that want to speak, and I want to do something for them, but they're not speakers.
Yeah.
right? And that's a big thing because you have to really understand that event host doesn't care about you. They care about their stage and their members
Yeah.
and how you're going to appeal to them. So it really gets into having an event host state of mind, understanding who that event host is, what they want, doing a online sweep of yourself, right? You're a public figure, and if they're putting you on their stage, fairly or unfairly, they're going to be judging you. What's on all your public profiles, even your personal ones, if they're public. So
yeah, we talk about this a lot when branding comes up is, people say don't judge a book by its cover, but we do. I mean, we really do. When those hosts are, looking you up because they will to determine if they're going to book you, you need to look the part.
and if they don't know who you are at all and that's all they have to go on. And then the other thing is, and I see so many new entrepreneurs do this, they're overly vulnerable when they go out and network or meet people. And, I'm not talking about going out there and saying everything's great when it's not, but I like to say there's a difference between being real and authentic. So someone comes to your house, there's a pile of laundry in the corner and you didn't get the house cleaned, that's authentic. Pulling out every single piece of soiled garments is a little bit much.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that with your business, you're not positioning yourself as an expert to clients. You're certainly not going to get on stage. So it's all really about getting ready. And we can't go into it today, but I do teach people how to do that if they have never been on stage, how to create that persona. And there's things you can do so that that's not an issue anymore, like including hosting self-hosted events. So just so that you get all that together. And then
so that you create the perception
yes.
that you are a speaker and that you're a desirable speaker and it's an honor to have you on the stage.
Yeah. And it's not really a perception. If you've filled a room yourself and people have heard you talk and they like what you said, then it's authentic, right? So at least you can put that out there. And the other thing too that I teach people is they have to be very clear about their talk titles. Don't reach out with a vague idea and don't reach out with a really abstract title that has to be explained. We're all taught to have an ideal client, and in your talk, you're speaking to that client. But an event host has more than your ideal client in the room, and they want to fill the room. So your talk has to make sense for them to put you on there, and everyone has to get value. So you really want to take that step to be very, very well prepared so that they look at you and go, hey, this person will do well, on my stage.
Do you recommend that people have a couple different talk topics, or they have one talk topic, or what are your thoughts about that?
I like to recommend that you have one general topic that you can create similar talks from. Mm-hmm. And you may want to tweak them for the venue, which we're getting into in step 3, which is really cool because you have to always remember why people go to a certain venue and why they don't, and adapt your talk to that. But if you're always changing what you're speaking about, you're not going to be effective as a speaker because you're always trying to remember a new talk, and that's pretty stressful. Right?
Yeah.
So when we get on to step 3, I tell people to do, it's like what you said, you did all the research before you reached out, right? And that's the same thing. Do all your research and find places to speak and look at not just what the event is and who goes there, but why they go there. So if you're a health coach and you're speaking at a gym, there may be entrepreneurs and new moms there, but people at a gym are going to the gym for health and fitness. So you would tailor your talk, or just not necessarily your talk, but your bullets in your title to appeal to that mindset. If you go to a new mom club, they might be entrepreneurs and fitness buffs, but they're going to a new mom club because they want quick, easy, healthy meals. So it's just about knowing why they gather when you apply.
And if you think about it, that makes complete sense because you don't want to be sending the same pitches or the same applications or whatever to every single solitary place. You want to personalize it. And you can only personalize it if you know the venue, if you know the event.
Exactly. So you have to look them up. And you said a really important thing too, like sending the same pitch and talk out. You need to know who's in what area, because if you send the same talk out to 3 places and they all book you, they're going to have an attendance problem. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to remember you as a speaker that didn't fill the room. So even if the content of the talk is the same, let's face it, we never deliver it the same. Just tweak how you position it and tweak your title a little bit. Yeah. So that's what I say step 3 is do all the research in advance, know where you're going and why the people are going there.
So plan and set your goals, make yourself desirable, and do your research. What's next? Reaching out. Okay. So pitch yourself to these outlets.
Unless you're hiring a PR firm that can open doors for you, don't get your assistant to try to market your talk. I don't know how many people said to me, my VA is not getting me speaking gigs. I go, well, they shouldn't. It's not their job.
Most VAs don't even know how to do that anyway.
Exactly. But the amount of people I have met that have had that problem with their assistant, and you don't have the brand gravitas even to consider doing that when you're starting out. I mean, sure, once you get booked, they can take over all the logistics, but reaching out and marketing yourself, that should be you at that point.
Well, I've also found it's easier to get to a point where you can delegate and scale it if you've had success with it yourself, and then you can systematize it and then better teach it to someone else to delegate it. Like that's how we did the podcast interviews. I did the research, I did the pitching, I got the interviews, and then I turned it into a system. Like step 1 is you do this, step 2 is you do this, step 3 is you do this. I had the scripts, I had the templates, and then I hired a publicist and I was like, all right, take this and go scale it.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Like that's our step. In step 4 too, is about being really, really organized, because there's so many details. And if you know what all those details are, then you can delegate that to someone else and you can keep really organized. The thing to remember though, when you're reaching out, is do not make it about you. Make it about the event host. Be of service. Don't say, hey, somebody once said, just email places and ask them if they take outside speakers, see what they say, then follow up. I don't believe in that. I kind of go, make it personal. Introduce yourself to them. Write a personal note. Let them know who you are, what you do, and this is what you speak about, and ask if it'll be a fit for their members. You'll go a lot further that way. So it's about knowing how to reach out and then keeping details organized, and knowing, how long the talks are, how long, can you make an offer, not make an offer, and don't mess those up.
Yeah.
Don't mess that up. And keeping, what I'm trying to say, like keeping really, really good track of everything. I once showed up at a venue a week before my talk.
Oh, no.
They told me it was the second Tuesday or second Thursday of the month when they meant the third, but I never confirmed the actual date on the calendar. Like I've made every mistake there is. I mean, it was really bad.
And that's why you can teach it.
Yes. And things, I had a VIP day with a client the next day. So, I mean, someone paying me that kind of money, I'm not speaking, I'm going to the VIP day. Yeah. But I've never been invited back there because I was the no-show speaker. So keeping track of details is really, really important, because when you get full, you can't keep it all in your head. There's just no way. Your head is not a system. Like it's not.
Especially after you have kids.
Yeah.
It's not happening after that.
I don't have kids and I still can't keep track of it. And then you want to be thinking about having a successful talk, and a successful talk that's step number 5. That starts the night before at home. Go to bed early, be relaxed, don't drink the night before, get up early in the morning, leave an hour before you're supposed to leave. I one time had to go across the border, and so my talk wasn't until noon. I left at 7. Good thing I did, because we had some adventures.
Oh, no.
Right. So even though we had all our paperwork in order, so it was a good thing that I did that, because you don't want to show up stressed and worried and late. You want to be relaxed. And when you give your talk, you really want to be thinking about your success is going to be getting immediate business and clients, long-term business in leads and collections of people on your list, and midterm business where you're going to meet other speaking event hosts so you can get more speaking gigs. So I encourage people to always go into a room thinking that, and joint venture opportunities too. So go in looking at this on the big picture, like you were talking earlier, building up that sustainable income. If all you're looking to do is go in and close the room, you'll find speaking is an expensive hobby, not a lucrative way to build your business. So look at all of those opportunities and be speaking to all of those people in the room. So that's I think was key for me, because my first talks, when I didn't, close, I mean, the first one did really well, but not all of them had business right away. And I had to change my perspective to kind of go, wait a minute, what am I trying to do here? This is a long game.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I remember when I first started speaking, and it's not like a huge part of my business model, but when I first started speaking, I remember, having a conversation with someone about how, like, in terms of return on investment, I could put less effort into Facebook ads and make more money. And then later on, like a couple months later, I did the event anyway. I did the events anyway. Yeah. And then a couple months later, I had someone come to me and decide to work with me, and I didn't really know where she came from or how she found me, and come to find out it was from the freaking event. And I was like, oh, I just, what is that? What's that expression? Like, it like put a foot in my mouth or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, prove me wrong.
Well, I think it's whether you're working online or you're working in person, I just think it's so important to have that long-term focus, that everything you're doing is stacking and building.
Yeah.
A good part of our business now does come from online, but I'm telling you, it's not from that Facebook ad that I did today. It's from like everything we've built up. It's the same with speaking. Have the long game in mind, because you'll actually show up very differently. Yeah. I mean, you'll show up less panicked, you'll show up less worried, and you'll just show up really confident. And it's always the long game, and know that it's going to come back to you. And
holy moly, is that true? That is so, so true. My last business was all about the short game, and I was so stressed all the time. And as soon as I shifted my mindset to focusing on the long game, it was like immediate relief.
Well, and the thing is, what happens within the long game, sometimes it will take a bit longer for that immediate income hit to hit. I mean, my first long game was a disaster, but that's because I had no strategy, right? But the thing is, when you're playing that, what you're doing is you're filling your bank up for years to come. So you build momentum, and then as soon as the first one hits, it just keeps going and going.
Right.
So think of the long game. That's all I can say.
So plan your goals.
Yeah.
Make yourself desirable.
Yeah.
Do your research.
Reach.
Say that again. Oh, do your reach out. Yeah.
And stay organized.
Go in prepared to rock your talk. I don't know if that's how you said it, but that's what you were saying. And then I think you said you had a sixth one, right?
Yeah, the sixth one is turning yourself into a sought-after speaker. Get out there and shamelessly self-promote the heck out of yourself. Right? Put pictures of yourself up speaking. Share the event's hosts' pictures, because that gives them more exposure and they like that. Thank the hosts. Put yourself up there. Some of those original hosts that told me no or wouldn't put me within a mile of their stage, they came to me later when they saw those pictures of me speaking.
Oh,
I didn't have to
yeah,
go,
girl.
yeah.
Take that.
And so you just shamelessly self-promote yourself. It's okay, and that's how you become sought after. And you just milk it.
Yeah.
Just on the social media, thank them. It's okay to do that.
Now,
you're a public figure.
I imagine for some people that's uncomfortable. And I imagine for some people, even with these 6 steps, they're still going to have questions like, how exactly do I make myself desirable? Like, what are my media pages supposed to look like? How do I do these pitches? Like, where are places I can pitch? Like, all of these things. I'm sure people still have questions. So I'd love for them to be able to keep in touch with you and get those answered. So for our nerdpreneurs who are listening, who want to get an A+ for effort and are going to take that extra step to look you up after this episode is over, can you make it a little easier on them? Where can they find you online? What's the gift you have for us today?
Well, I mean, they can find me at nafissashireen.com, but I have a great gift for them today. It's on talk titles, how to do their talk titles. And so I think you have a URL for them to get that. And if they get that gift, they like what they see. You know what I'm going to do is I actually have a webinar that goes into detail about this. All they have to do is reply to that and say, send me the webinar, and I'll send it out to them. There's a lot more detail in there.
Oh, yay. Thank you. So you guys can get that at marketlikeanerd.com/talk titles. Okay. So go to marketlikeanerd.com/talk titles. And if you're not by your computer right now, just know you can go over to our website, and on her episode in the show notes, we'll have a link to where you can go click over to get that gift as well. Okay, guys? All right. Thank you, Nafissa. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Nerdpreneur Nation, there you have it. Our speaking superhero has swooped in to save the day. To grab her gift, head on over to marketlikeanerd.com/talk titles. Thank you, Nafissa, for joining us. Thank you, everyone. We hope that you learned a lot. We can't wait to hear where these tips take you, and we'll catch you next time on Market Like a Nerd. Have a nerdtastic day, guys. Bye.
Bye.